Hey guys, welcome back. We are continuing our mini-series on the book of Revelation, but we're going to pick up right where we left off last time. So let's dive right into it. Now, we'll remember that we're looking at Revelation chapter 8. Last time we talked about verses 1 through 5. This time we're going to look at verses 6 through 9. So let's read the passage. It says, "And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. The second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed." Whoa, what a powerful passage. Now, just as we did last time, we're going to break this down into 2 parts. Part 1, 1 through 5, and Part 2, verses 6 through 9. We're going to ask 4 basic questions about each section. What happened? Why did it happen? How should we respond? And how does it apply to us today? Let's dive in. First, what actually happened here? Well, we saw last time the opening of the scroll. We heard the prayers of the martyrs being cried out for vindication against those who had killed them. And we saw the 2300-day period mentioned again. Now, apparently, when the scroll is opened, 7 angels are prepared to sound their trumpets. They have these 7 trumpets to sound, and they are about to do so. Verse 6 simply tells us that these angels prepared themselves to sound these trumpets. Now, it would be helpful if we knew exactly what kind of trumpets these were. The Hebrew word translated trumpet here is shatzaro. Shatzaro can refer to either an instrument used to make music or an instrument used for warfare. Now, some people take this as referring to musical trumpets, but most scholars believe this refers to war trumpets because in verse 10, they are called the 7 thunders. Both of these terms would have been familiar to the audience of John's original audience, and it would have been understood that these were military instruments. In fact, one scholar writes that the symbolism of the trumpet is so well established in the OT that there can be little doubt that it signifies a call to action, and that is precisely what happens here. These 7 angels are about to engage in warfare against the forces of evil. So now we come to the sounding of the first trumpet, and things immediately begin to go very badly. First, we read that hail and fire and blood are mingled together and cast upon the earth. Now, the word hail here could also be translated as hailstones. And so imagine enormous hailstones coming down from the sky mixed in with fire and blood and hitting the earth. One commentator writes, "The imagery vividly suggests bloodshed, carnage, and destruction on the earth." And that is precisely what follows. The third part of all the trees on the earth is burned up, and all the green grass is also burned up. Now, the phrase third part is found 4 times in these verses, and it helps us understand the scope of what is happening. This judgment is not universal. It is not everything, but it is a significant portion. A third part of the world's trees are burned up. A third part of the creatures in the sea die. A third part of the sea becomes blood, and a third part of the ships are destroyed. Judgment has come upon the earth, and it is severe. Okay. Second, why did this happen? Well, the simple answer is sin. Once again, God's judgment is being poured out on the earth because of the wickedness of humanity. We need to remember that this is a judgment on the earth, but it is not a judgment on the whole earth. God is not judging the earth itself. He is judging the inhabitants of the earth. This judgment is not a judgment on humanity in general, but it is a judgment on the wicked. In particular, God is pouring out His wrath on the persecutors of His people. These judgments will culminate in what we call the tribulation period. And that tribulation will be poured out on the people who refuse to repent of their sin. Now, it is important to note here that while much of this book has a future focus, this judgment is not only future. This judgment is also happening right now. Listen to this commentary. It must not be supposed that all these woes fell exclusively upon the church. The church is carefully distinguished from the world. Indeed, the woes of the world fall upon the church only insofar as its members are involved in the world. If Christians live in the world and share its interests, they will experience its woes along with it. That means that even as God pours out his judgment on the wicked, his people can also be affected by that judgment. God's people are not exempt from the difficulties and hardships that come as a result of living in a sinful world. Third, how should we respond? Verses 4 and 5 gave us the answer here. It said that John fell at the feet of the angel who was speaking with him and worshipped him. And then the angel said, "See, do not be afraid." So the response of John was worship and prayer, and the response of the angel was encouragement. Do not be afraid. And here is the key thing to notice. John was worshiping God, but he was worshiping God because of what the angel had just told him. John was responding to the message that the angel delivered to him, and that is the key for us as well. We must never forget that God is in control, no matter how bad things may become. And when we remember that, our response should be worship and prayer. Remember, God is on the throne. He sees the suffering of his people. He hears the cries of the oppressed, and he is going to act on their behalf. We can trust in God and his word. Finally, how does this apply to us today? In a practical sense, nothing in this passage should shock us. We live in a fallen world inhabited by a sinful people, and as a result, bad things happen. Earthquakes, hurricanes, pandemics, terrorist attacks, wars and rumors of wars, famines, inflation, depression, cancer, accidents, sickness, death, natural disasters. Life in this world is difficult, and sometimes it can be very hard, and sometimes we don't know why bad things happen. Sometimes there is a clear cause, other times there is not. But we must remember that while these things can affect us, they cannot overcome us if we walk with God. As believers, we should never be surprised when bad things happen, nor should we be discouraged when we face opposition. In fact, the Christian life is one of both joy and suffering, and we must learn to walk through both of those seasons. We must remember that as followers of Christ, we do not live here. We are only passing through this world, and our citizenship is not in this world, but it is in heaven. We are aliens and strangers in this world, and we must keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. So, for me, I think the main lesson in this passage is a call to worship God in the midst of trouble, to remember that God is still on the throne, to remember that He is in control. When things get tough, when life gets hard, when the circumstances seem bleak, let's remember that God sees us, God cares for us, and God is going to work things out for us. So let's draw near to God and let's worship Him in the midst of our circumstances. I hope this helps you understand this passage. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.